How to be good at sales and marketing. If you want to be good at sales and marketing, stop calling it sales and marketing. Let's flip it. It almost makes me uncomfortable to say it out loud, how to be good at sales and marketing, because marketing always comes before sales. A lot of us think that being good at sales and marketing has to do with talent. It actually has more to do with system. How many times have you heard a snake oil salesman kind of looking at you, They want you to buy this before the end of the day. What can I do to get you into that car before you leave this thing? Sorry, used car salesman. We just have to go your direction. That's not true sales. True sales has more to do with systems and processes. By the end of this video, you're going to see 3 skills that will make anyone good at marketing and sales. So we worked with a lot of business owners, about 300 over the last 11 years, and through that we've met a lot of different personalities, as you can imagine. And a lot of those business owners, for whatever reason, came through the contractor space. And so even doubly, you can imagine some of the personalities that we've met with. There was one particular guy, and when I was asked about him to describe his personality, here was my description: dry toast. That's what I described him as. He kind of had the personality of dry toast. And you're like, what is the personality of dry toast? I don't know. Just look at a piece of dry toast on a plate and that's his personality. And so he was deeply introverted, struggled getting out and getting in front of people. But one of the things that we started working on is we built a system, both for marketing and for sales. And the guy doubled his revenue in 2 years. Because instead of him seeing sales as this sort of charismatic snake oil sales thing, he saw marketing and sales as a process. And what he began to do was work the process, and through it, he doubled his revenue. The first skill that I want to share with you that makes you good at marketing and sales is when you commit to consistency over creativity. There are a lot of people that we worked with who are not overly creative. In fact, I can make the argument that AI is going to massively increase our level of creativity so that the level of wonder and ideation is not as important as the level of consistency. What we call repetition, predictability, and meanings. One of the greatest stories I've ever read is about Ernest Shackleton, who was going to be the first explorer to try to cross the Antarctic continent. And it's so funny, as we started sharing this story about 6-7 years ago, more and more books have been written. They ended up finding the ship. And now there's a lot of people I talk to that are like, have you heard of Ernest Shackleton? I was like, yeah, like a ton. And he was so fascinating, his story, because he led a team of 27 plus him, so 28 total, to try to cross this. Well, they got stuck in the Weddell Sea right before the Antarctic continent. And so it was the beginning of 1915 that they got stuck. They stayed stuck for about 10 months before their boat finally cracked and sank to the bottom of the sea. In fact, just a couple years ago, they found it. So if you look up the ship Endurance, you can look it up on YouTube. There's a ton of YouTube videos about it to see the ship Endurance and how they found it perfectly preserved. But after the ship sank, what happened is the lifeboats deployed, and they had to live an entire another year on lifeboats in the most treacherous seas in the entire earth. And so, after almost 2 years being deployed, not one guy died. Everybody made it back alive. How did that happen? Is what we found is the RPMs of great leadership. Ernest Shackleton was consistent. He wasn't ultimately creative. He had some creative moments, but ultimately he was consistent, repetitive, predictable, and meaningful. If you want to be great at marketing, if you want to be great at sales, you need to be great at being consistent. A regular drumbeat, a regular rhythm, over and over and over again. When I was playing football, one of the phrases I remember that rings in my head that my coach would say is, do it again. And you're like, I don't want to do it again. He'd be like, do it again, do it again. And that's what I have to tell you as a coach to a business owner, marketing and sales, do it again. Too many of us get so hyped about the first thing that went out. That next email came, we got to deploy it. I got a YouTube video up last week. How did it do? Do it again, do it again, do it again. So that's skill number 1. The next skill is we've got to start tracking what works and get rid of what doesn't. So over time. Now, here's a caveat to this. Too many times we deploy a new idea, it doesn't work in a day or an hour or a week, and we get rid of it. Whoa. There are some things that when we say they need time, that means they need time and consistency over that time. Too many times I hear people go, well, we just need more time. Marketers are notorious for this. They go, well, we just need to give it more time. Just keep paying me money and we'll just give it more time. What they're really saying is, I deployed a tool, I want to sit back and take your money and just give it some time. And then we're going to cross our fingers to see if it works. No, that's not it either. We want to have consistency, repetition over time, doing that thing and drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling, so that over time we have action as well. So it's got to be action plus time. That's what equals total consistency when we're looking at it. And in that consistency, what we're going to do is we're going to start tracking the results of that activity. And so when we look at tracking, there's really two elements that go into tracking: actions, results. And so if you just take a simple spreadsheet, look at your marketing activities, and look at your sales activities. In fact, I just have another video that I posted that talks about the difference between marketing and sales and what those activities and results should look like. So make sure you click on the link in the description below and learn a little bit more about those actions and results for marketing and sales. And so if you want to track something, you've got to have the activities to track and the results of that thing to track. So get a simple spreadsheet. I want you to think through your marketing system. That is different from a sales system. The whole purpose of marketing is to reach out to qualified prospects, to identify who those prospects are. The purpose of sales is to take those prospects that come from marketing and try to convert them into customers. That's the whole point of both of those systems. So if we want to track those systems, we've got to have a tracking system for marketing, and we've got to have a tracking system for sales. And it's a culmination of actions and results. And if you want to become better at marketing and sales, there's a third element that I want you to deploy. Now, this is going to be an uncomfortable element for you because we tab it as FU. So write that down, FU. Now make sure you don't let other people see that sheet of paper. Here's what it means: follow up, follow up, follow up. In fact, I'll put an R in front of the FU just to make you more comfortable, and that is radical follow-up. Remember when I talked about consistency? Part of the consistency of reaching out to prospects and converting those prospects into customers is you've got to have a radical follow-up. If I went into your marketing and sales system, statistically, I would find that you did a big launch and there wasn't a lot of consistent radical follow-up. And so you got a lead, you met that person at a networking event or a trade show or whatever, and you called them one time. God, I called them, I emailed them 3 months ago, I haven't heard back from them. That's not radical follow-up. That's not consistent follow-up. You've got to have a system for follow-up. In fact, when I'm speaking about systems, I want you to remember this: marketing is a system of your business. Sales is a system of your business, operations and administration. See, there's 4 core systems of every single business. So marketing is not just a cool little thing that we do. Sales is not just a cool little thing that we do. Each of these are powerful systems within the business, and a system must be built out. Think of a system like this. You're in the car. You press on the brake pedal. What does that do? It activates the braking system. It's a whole system, but the system is made up of component parts: the brake pedal, the stem, the hydraulic lines, the brake pads. All of those things are part of the braking system. So you have a marketing system, and you want that system to go find prospects. Well, what are the components of that marketing system? You've got air support, website, social media channels, all those sorts of things, print advertising. You've got your ground game. That's what we call your infantry. That's where you're going individual, one-on-one meetings, networking events, in-person places. So you've got the air support that is sort of distant. You've got the ground game that is in person with proximity. In both of those, we need to start mapping those out for how do we update the website? What's the content we put on the website? All of that is component parts of your marketing system. And so once you commit yourself to get better at marketing and sales through this radical consistency, tracking, and then this radical follow-up, remember the FU on the back end, then once we start to do that, we need to deploy the team. The team needs to understand the systems on how everything works, but then we also need to empower that team. We need to delegate that team. So I want to point you to another video that I've actually done on delegation. So if you click on the link in the description below, I've got a whole video on the difference between abdication and proper delegation. And so once you start to delegate, you'll start to raise up team members, and those team members are going to be able to run marketing and run sales like you run marketing and run sales. Why are we doing all this? Is because you want to build a business that runs and grows with or without you. And right now it feels a little chaotic because you're doing everything. But once we start deploying these systems with consistency, tracking, radical follow-up, and we can train other people to be able to do that, that'll get you to the ultimate goal. And that's liberation from chaos to make time for the things that matter most.